strikes again. Welcome to the show.
And welcome back to another episode of the AstrosFuture podcast here on the Believe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Price, also known as AstrosFuture. You can find my work at AstrosFuture.com. Find me on X at AstrosFuture.
I'm your co-host, Kenny Van Doren. You can also find me on X at The Vandalorian.
So now we're about 2 weeks away from, or 2 weeks past the draft. It was about 2 weeks ago. Everything's been done. The signings have happened. The signing deadline has came and went. So we wanted to take this chance to kind of break down the draft. It's a good opportunity for the Astros to add a bunch of prospects into the system. Always one of the most fun times of the year for me. Just the excitement of adding some of the draft. But Kenny, let me just ask you, just what's your overall take on the draft? We'll get into who was selected in round 1 and 3 and 4 and so on. But what's your overall feeling on the draft?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily maybe a change in philosophy, but maybe a change in approach. Yeah, I think every year you are going to take the best player available, and that's could be different by team. Everyone has different scouts, different things that they view, and a lot of these makeups for high schoolers and college players. But there was a lot of a focus on high school guys, and I think that's a good trend too. Is they were trying to find the best talent they could. They're finally a couple years removed of losing draft picks, even though there was no second round pick this year. It was still just an opportunity to address some maybe younger talent coming into the system, because we look at the Astros top 30, and I think the Astros would probably admit it too, that there's no huge prospects in the system right now. And I think everyone's going to point, the Astros can turn up an infielder anywhere. They can turn up a reliever at any point they want. It's also still good to get a lot of these high schoolers and mold them. You don't have to worry about them going to college, learning something there that maybe you want to kind of knock off once they get to the pros. And it's just a good approach to have, is to have a lot of those young guys. Not everyone's going to pan out the way you want, but they saw a lot of key traits in some of them, and especially their first round pick. And I think that's a good maybe trend that we're going to see, as you're not going right after the college bat in the first round like I kind of thought they were going to do this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you look at not just this draft, but last year, and I think me and you texted about it, Ethan Wagner, and then Jagger Beck undrafted in the year before, Chase Jaworski. So kind of building that pipeline, hopefully, of the high school talent. But that brings us to who they picked number 1 and number 21 overall in the first round, Xavier Nayans, shortstop out of Mount Vernon High School. Everything I've read on him is talked about how developed of a hitter he is. Elite power, some of the best raw power in the draft. Especially coming from the high school level, 6'4", 210 pounds. And, there's talks about him maybe having to move to third base or something like that, because he's such a big kid. But to be able to get some power like that from the left side, and like you said, really kind of swinging for the fence. It wasn't the safe pick. It wasn't, the college outfielder who has, a good walk to strikeout ratio. They swung for the fences and went for a guy that's very young, but huge upside in a pick that we haven't really seen them haven't seen them take a pick like that in quite a long time.
Yeah, big-bodied, athletic. It's moving to third base isn't really going to be too much of an issue either. I was talking to some scouts. 65, 70 grade arm is what they've tabbed him with. They're pretty excited just about star potential of an everyday guy. It's going to be a couple years from now. I know the Astros haven't drafted a high schooler at the top of the draft in some time, and the last one wasn't even a first-round pick with their first pick with a high schooler back in 2021. So it's a different, look on, what to expect, but a high baseball IQ. You talk about that power, Jimmy. They see him as a possibility of 60 grade power third baseman. And that's exactly what you want. You don't want the hot corner to be a position that you're lacking offensively at the same time. And it's going to take some time. It's not, putting these projections on him can be tough, but all around, good approach, good high IQ. I know some people were like a little bit flustered when they were looking back on his tape, because I think on one of the circuits that he was on, he was just walking like crazy. I think I don't know if you saw some of those tweets where people were like, he just wasn't swinging at times. So maybe that was like a knock on him. But I know Jim Callis over at MLB Pipeline really likes him, and he does the Astros list. So there's a lot of excitement just behind Xavier going into the system.
Yeah, and I think there's, you read some mock drafts and stuff. There's some the potential of him even going higher than 21. And kind of the last couple of years, Walker Yannick, Bryce Matthews, I think when the Astros made that selection, at least on Pipeline's list, those guys were rated a little bit lower, probably signed for a little under slot or maybe right at slot. And Nayans got, well over $4 million. So like I said, is a high potential pick, but probably one of the more, I don't know if you want to call it unsafe pick because it's a high schooler, but definitely the aggressive style pick, the first one that we've kind of seen from Dana Brown.
Yeah, and the last thing I would just throw out there, just on that, maybe aggressiveness is that I think they're going after a kid with character too. Like I talked about the high IQ from what scouts are seeing. They wanted someone that they probably just meshed well with what they were looking for and will be easily adaptable to what they're doing. Because just offensively, when you look at the power too, it's not just like he's a pull hitter, left-handed. Like the scouts noted that he's hitting power to all fields and he's kind of understanding where his approach needs to be. And I think that's massive. And he's from Delaware. Like that's just not a big thing either that you've kind of seen from some of these. Oh, no, sorry, that's the other high school they signed. But yeah, just out west kind of guy. And so I think it's a big signing. It's a big turning point for the Astros.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be really fun to watch as he progresses through the system. Probably won't get a chance to see him this year unless they some reason want to throw him in Fayetteville at the end of the year. But next year will be really fun to see him. So the Astros didn't have a second round pick. They lost that when they signed Christian Walker, which was pretty unfortunate. They lost that and a comp fourth round pick that they would have gotten for Bregman. But next pick was the third round, number 91. 95. The Astros took an outfielder out of LSU, Ethan Frey. And everything I've read about him and I've seen from the scouts and stuff is really positive stuff. They ended up paying him over slot, almost $200,000 over slot to get him in the third round, signed him for almost $1 million. But last year at LSU, hit 331, 13 homers. He's a really good athlete for being so big, 6'6". Played out. I think this last year he DH'd a lot. If I remember right, I read something. Maybe he had some shoulder issues or something, which is why he wasn't playing in the field. But scout I talked to said it's some of the best power that he's ever scouted in his 6 years in scouting. And just they think he's going to probably end up at a corner outfield spot, but it kind of follows in line with the trend with Nayans, where it's just big time power. And it almost seems like maybe that's Dana Brown's way. I mean, he kind of did that with Bryce Matthews and some of the other guys where the strikeouts are not a big deal if you're hitting home runs. But Frey seems like another pick that has some really good potential to it.
Yeah, it was a torn labrum in his shoulder, missed summer ball last year. That can kind of knock some guys down a peg. You're not playing in some of these woodbat leagues or playing against more elite competition. But he played in the SEC. He won two College World Series while he was there. Kind of played sparingly a little bit until this past year. And it really kicked it up a notch. And you talk about that size, 6'6", 225 pounds. I don't want people to think like that's going to affect him athletically. The guy is still noted as a good runner, as a strong fielder. He can play all three outfield positions right now. And I think that's exactly what the Astros wanted. You've seen them kind of go after some of these guys early on, Jimmy, these last couple of years, left-handed hitting outfielders first. And they go out and get Ethan Frey, who's a right-handed hitting outfielder. And I think you hit, the nail on the head with maybe some PR as well with him going to LSU. I think that's a positive that kind of just fell into their lap as well. So there's going to be a lot of overlap in those fan bases and a lot of people pushing for him to move up the system pretty quickly.
Definitely. Anytime you can get someone from LSU into the Astros system is always good. We saw that with Bregman back in 2015. And a lot of people that like LSU were also Astros fans, so that'll be good. Fourth round, they went a little smaller school, went to Southern Mississippi. Nick Monaster, an infielder, but he's actually was born in Sugar Land, went to Southern Mississippi, had a breakout junior season, hit 323, 21 home runs, 72 runs batted in. Can really play all over the field. Once again, another really good athlete. And the word that I've gotten on really both Frey and Monaster is just top of line, like makeup guys, great workers, great clubhouse guys, and the kind of guys you want to have in your system.
Yeah, it seemed like Southern Miss had produced a lot of good players this year as well, especially like top end of the draft is where we're sitting right here, like early on day 2 in the fourth round. And I think we're starting to see the Astros kind of take maybe more of an approach of looking into the deep South, like we talked about Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, some of those states, and finding some college ready guys. And you go back-to-back picks there. And I think that's just kind of different approaches every year of where they think talent is. I think it was 2023. We go back 2 years. And it felt like they wouldn't leave California. Like that was just something like that year. And they keep going back, year after year and finding more talent. But you're getting a lot of college ready, more pro ready guys from these colleges here, and maybe not even some of the bigger colleges like Southern Miss. And it's still, group of 5, but it's not the LSUs of the world. But you're still finding talent that's ready to make an impact in the system.
So every year it seems like the Astros find a way to get a steal on a pitcher, a guy that maybe they draft a little bit later and has a breakout season. We saw that with Ethan Pecco in 2023. We're seeing it right now with Bryce Meyer and from the last year's draft from Missouri. In the 5th round, the Astros took a right-hander, Nick Potter, out of Wichita State. You could look at his stats. He pitched in relief, but the end of the day, the thing that caught everyone's attention was his fastball is elite, up to 100 miles per hour. But what do you know about Potter?
Yeah, the thing, like, when you go after, some of these pitchers, and I was trying to get something on him before I got on here because I knew that, the scouts in that area, is, I guess, like, early on, you're trying to find someone that's going to be in that starting role, and a fastball like that. That one of the big things that the Astros try to push is that they want two fastball pitchers. And I think having that velocity, and then you kind of mix that in with, how are they going to update his arsenal or tweak his arsenal to get a sinker in there, and then just get two breaking pitches to put batters away and fan them. So I think that's a good move, to get early on. You get a lot of these more adaptable pitchers in a starting role, especially early on those day two. And I know day two and day three are kind of pushed together. So in my mind, I'm going to keep saying that it's early day two.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to be a guy that he probably moves up the system quickly, Jimmy. I like the idea of, like, we'll look back maybe, let's say, like May next year, and be like, oh, is he in conversation for pitcher of the year? And it's all about, staying healthy up to that point. And I'm sure there might be some guys later down in the draft that will move pretty quickly as college arms.
And I'm guessing, given what he signed for and the repertoire he has, you think he'll end up being a starter?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to, move a guy to the bullpen unless, like, he's like a Roldis Chapman or, a Class A, someone that just has all these tools that you see early on that should be a closer. I think your focus with a lot of these guys, especially if you're drafting them pretty early, is that, you want them to be a starter as long as they can. Most relievers are just failed starters. A guy this year, Alimber Santa, who's moved up to AAA, the day that we're recording this is, a failed starter in one sense. And I think, for a lot of these guys, you're trying to keep them in that rotation as long as you can.
Yeah, for sure. So the sixth round, I don't want to butcher the name. I don't know if you know how it's pronounced. Last name Pentecost, first name.
Yeah.
Gable?
Yeah. I would think Gable Pentecost. So that, I guess Pentecost.
Yeah. So out of Taylor University, once again, another small school. The Astros went back there. Struck out 116 over 80 innings last year. I saw that he ran the fastball up to 96. But if I remember right, aren't they a NAIA school, Taylor?
Yeah, I was trying to look it up. I was trying to find out where and, like, which scouts in that area and who was actually looking over it.
Indiana,
very small.
Right?
Yeah, very small school, Indiana. What you like about it is definitely, the strikeout percentage. 116 over 80 innings is really good, and it's a legit fastball, like 96. And like we talked about, the two fastball mix. They like fastballs with rise. The sweeping slider will be a big one, and I just kind of wonder too if, like, they will tweak that, because this feels like a lot of people are adding that sweeper, and hitters are kind of catching up to it at times. And you've seen some pitchers even speak about it, like top 100 guys saying that they're kind of going back to the slider, going back to the curveball at times, just because everyone has a sweeper and all these hitters are seeing it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to look it up. If I remember right, I think he was at Crowder College, maybe before he went to Taylor, which is actually kind of a place the Astros have drafted from a few times. I think James Hicks went there prior to going to South Carolina. But yeah, so it must have a little pipeline with Crowder College.
So, yeah, it was a spot too that I remember when Hicks was coming out of it. I was talking to scouts that were watching him in JUCO and saying, like, the changeup was insane. I do wonder if there's some kind of magic they do at Crowder right now that has something to do with the changeup, but that wasn't even in Pentecost's scouting report that we have on here.
So the next round, 7th round, the Astros went back to the high school high potential here with Jace Mitchell, a catcher out of Delaware. The Astros, let's say a couple of years ago, they drafted Chase Jaworski in the 5th round. I think they paid him about $500,000. Jace Mitchell signed for nearly $800,000. And really, the report on him is kind of similar to Nans, with big arm, big power from the left-handed side. Obviously, a different level of prospect, but that to me seems like a really good get to get another high potential high school guy in there with Nans. And like we talked about, kind of developing that high school pipeline, hopefully, to just add some more high potential position players to the system.
Yeah, he was a spring riser too. I don't know if many people like the area codes. Area code games are big, in the spring after the high school seasons, and really pushed up his stock there. This was the first time that a Delaware product has been drafted in the top 10 rounds since 2013. So that's, kind of an anomaly. I accidentally, mixed up my states earlier when I was trying to talk about Delaware. And he went to the same high school as Zach Geloff, the A's infielder, and his brother plays for the Dodgers too. So there's familiarity with, some good position players coming out of that high school. But 6'3", strong catcher, 205 pounds. born in 2006. I mean, Jimmy, geez, man, like you told me I aged myself talking about Kevin Youkilis with Will Bush. I'm feeling old just talking about this, and I'm not even that old. But I think a left-handed hitting catcher is very unique as well, and I think you like that. Moving up the system, and like we mentioned, there's going to be a good crop of high schoolers and teenagers that will be starting these next 2 years in the system, and I think you're kind of hoping that they kind of move together, and some will fall off, some will change positions along the way, but he looks like a guy that will stick there. He has a power arm and a power bat, and that's a very good combo. They pulled him away from Kentucky. It's pulling him away from the SEC, not the biggest time, SEC team right now, but still pulling him away from an SEC team is a good look.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I figured that was a pretty good commitment, and being drafted in the 7th round, I had a pretty good feeling they would sign him. But nice to get like you mentioned, another high potential guy in there with Nance. The next round, 8th round, they went with an infielder from Arizona State, Kyle Walker, second baseman. And I kind of thought this initially, and then I ended up seeing someone else mention it. But just watching him kind of reminds you of like Tony Kemp a little bit. 5'9", but he's kind of walks more than he strikes out, can steal some bases, has some pop, and just had some ridiculous numbers at Grambling before he transferred to Arizona State for his senior year. But me and you have texted about it a little bit. I think there's something to really getting just good players in the minor league system. Guys that can hit well at the single A, the high A level, and kind of move up. I mean, sometimes you can take that risk on the high potential. But I think it's important to create a winning culture early, and I think the Astros have done that. And getting a guy like Kyle Walker, a guy who's had success at a school and can come into the system and hopefully have that success immediately. But I like that selection a lot in the 8th round.
You read his bio and you just think like this guy will never have a clean jersey in his life. Like I think most clubhouse managers are hoping he's not wearing white at some of these games because he will just dirty up that uniform. 22 steals, 995 OPS. He was hitting 352 with all Big 12 second team honors this past year. Like you mentioned, you played at Grambling, started Louisiana Tech. So I do wonder, if any of those scouts, around the South really got eyes on him early because you mentioned 376 and with a 500 slug over his first 2 years. And he played for the U.S. Collegiate National Team last summer. Under slot value at $152,500, and the slot value in the 8th round was $219,000, $80,000. So great back to ball skills, excellent speed. We talk about those steals. He's going to swipe bases, energized. I think it's a very fun pick. He's 5'9", 185 pounds. I think he will be a guy that a lot of these minor league teams are just going to love. I'm pretty excited just to watch him because I think he's just going to be a fun watch, just kind of speeding around. And he was a top 250 guy too. He fell down some of these rounds and ended up still being a really great pickup for the Astros.
Yeah, and when you think about signing a senior bat that maybe doesn't have a ton of leverage but had good college success and that was successful in the minor leagues, as you were saying that, I immediately thought of Quincy Hamilton as a guy who ran through the lower minors, and I think hopefully Kyle Walker can be like that. So 9th round, they took a reliever, and this could be one that maybe ends up sticking at reliever, but Kellen Oaks out of Oregon State. I don't know a ton about him. Good strikeouts, 47 and 36 innings in relief last year, but I did see some videos, and he kind of seems kind of like an animal on the mound. I've seen some following his strikeout, some of the emotion he showed, and that was pretty cool to see. But that'll be interesting to see if the Astros end up using him in relief, or if they end up trying to convert him to a starter.
Yeah, so one of my guys just kind of going out west with some of the guys I talked to out there, and you talk about a leverage pen guy for Oregon State, and they've been frequenting Oregon State before. They signed a pitcher before, and then they got Jacob Melton in the last couple of years too. But there's potential to be a starter. That's what kind of makes me, I haven't talked to anyone yet about Pentecost, but just kind of comparing the outlook and how the Astros approach it, and Bryce Mayer last year, maybe someone who threw a lot more out of the pen. I think this is another guy that they think he can bulk up and throw in a tandem at some point. 3-pitch mix with a fastball slider and like a wipeout changeup that really works for him. It has some ride on his fastball too. He's up to 97, averaging 94. So really just the Astros bread and butter. Slider has a chance to be plus, especially against the right-handed hitters. RPM's up to 2,500 and has a really hard sweep on that slider. And changeup was an afterthought in his reliever role, but he does have one in place. So everything's going to look trending up for him. And I think that the 3-pitch mix will probably add 2 more pitches once he kind of locks in and gets moving in West Palm.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, getting another guy like that in the system, especially in the ninth round, seems like a good pick. So we'll kind of move to the back end of the draft now, rounds 10 through 20, and rather than go through every single pick, Kenny, I wanted you to give me one pick that stood out to you, one guy you're looking forward most to seeing.
I got two. I'm actually just going to start with the 10th pick. I always, have a soft spot, I guess, for the guys who signed for $7,000.
Yeah,
It always is kind of a tough look to see it too, because the pick value is 188,000, and you're a senior college sign, you're a shortstop. One of the big things that you try to get is a lot of these shortstops because there's a lot of athleticism in them, and coming from Cal Poly, not really signing for much, but there's good value there. He played a lot of first base this year because he volunteered too. Like that was a big thing. Like he just moved to that side to the corner just because he could, because they needed a spot to come up, and so worked out with the Astros. Lit it up as a shortstop. He's a great athlete with very easy actions and an easy average arm. So I don't necessarily know if maybe the future holds a shortstop, but can probably move around as we've already seen with his time at first base. Great bat to ball skills, doesn't really chase much. Sneaky power, which they've kind of found out west in some of these schools, especially just at the infield spots. There was some guys last year with some really good exit velocities. He's up to 106 right now, but his hard hit percentage is over 50. Probably the ceiling is a utility type, just where they're kind of getting him right now. But they want to, try to stick him on the dirt before they kind of move him to the outfield. And a lot of these guys, they like to say they're wired to success. And I think they kind of like the upside that can probably come with Daudet.
Yeah, and needing that versatility. You mentioned that at the Astros. If you look at the minor league system right now, there's been a lot of additions, especially in like high A and double A to the infielders, signing these guys that are maybe 25, 26, 27 to come in and play. And I think, getting a guy like him is hopefully a way to add some homegrown guys into your system that can take those positions. Before you give your second one, hopefully I'm not going to steal your, were you going to talk about DJ Newman?
I wasn't, but I know we needed to, yeah.
All right, well, I'll hit on it. I know that we did get a question on it. It was, do you think they'll continue to have him be a two-way player? So DJ Newman, 15th round out of Bowling Green, had some just insane numbers offensively. He only played in 25 games this last year, but hit 419, more walks and strikeouts, 4 homers, 9 stolen bases. But he hit 388 as a college player at Bowling Green. But then also pitched pretty well too, a 3.60 ERA in his college career, 91 strikeouts and 85 innings. That question's kind of hard to answer though, because we haven't really seen someone like this in the Astros system. We haven't seen someone who was a legit two-way player, drafted as a two-way player. He wasn't announced as an outfielder or a pitcher or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see, but that's kind of one that I don't know a lot about him, but I'm extremely intrigued to see what he can do. Mainly, putting up some ridiculous numbers in college. But then if the Astros actually do go ahead and use him as a two-way player.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like you said, Jimmy, we just haven't seen it yet, and it's a forever changing. Just kind of maybe not philosophies, but front office has changed so much over these last couple of years, and the scouts are the same. There's a lot of scouts that have still been around for multiple general managers. Dating back to even before or around when Luna started in the early 2010s, and so I don't see it really sticking very long. This isn't like the Mets have done this a handful of times and they continue to kind of do it. They get a guy and they either choose, you're going to take the stick or you're going to take the ball. I think it'll probably work maybe early on. You'll see it in Fayetteville a couple times. We just haven't heard yet if they're going to take which approach on that. I just don't think it's necessarily going to be one that's going to stick very long. What do you kind of prefer that if you had to choose one?
Yeah, I kind of think, I feel like we've seen it. People try to do it. Everyone wants to be Shohei, obviously. But there was a guy that the Rays drafted like number 3 overall, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. I forgot but he was a lefty hitter, lefty thrower, and phenomenal prospect. Well, never really made it very high, even in the minors. And I do just wonder, like, baseball is already so freaking hard, and it's already so hard transitioning from, college ball to the minor league to professional baseball. And I don't know. I think, like you mentioned, they may give him an opportunity to pitch a little bit. I don't know which one they would prefer. I'd be interested to talk to the scouts that liked him. Did they like him more for his bat, or was it more for the arm to see which way he would go? But yeah, I just, like I said, baseball's already so difficult. I think they would probably want him to focus on one position, and maybe they announced him as a two-way player right now because they they want to get him in the system and see where they like him better. Is it as an outfielder or is it as a pitcher?
For my next one, I guess I'll just kind of call him my top sleeper of the draft, because the Dome Sports did reply to us with that question about Newman that you just answered. Jimmy saying top sleeper pick of the draft. I like to go deep into like the last couple of rounds. I know like it would be fun to like pick the next Bryce Mayer, pick the next 16th, 15th round guy, James
Right.
Hicks, that will have a breakout here. But I'm going to go down to the 20th round. The Astros have, gone into Portland before, and they've got arms, and they've done it in the last couple years. But Chris Herbert, it seems a little bit interesting to me. He's a right-handed pitcher, both a starter and a relief role this past year, but like the Astros kind of do. And I know there's some questions in there that we had in the comments, talking about, are these guys going to be starters or just elite relievers? They're kind of still seeing him, start him off in the starting role and see how it goes. He was a two-way guy at that time, but projection is to just kind of stick on the mound. Doesn't really have a lot of mileage, a lot of innings just behind him. Didn't start pitching full-time until the middle of this past season, which is kind of crazy. So that's why I'm kind of just in this spot where I want to see how this works. I want to see how he looks, full year of Fayetteville next year. Numbers weren't great, but this is one of those aspects where they just look at the intangibles, like a lot of these numbers, up to 94, 95 on the fastball, but there's more velocity. They're kind of, hoping to see these next couple months. Can spin two different breaking balls to almost 2,700 RPMs, and both have a chance to play all, against both sides. Throws a split as his changeup, and it's nasty at times with bottom and tail on it. There's just a lot of excitement. They want to see, the strikeout numbers go up, but pretty good value for a project. I don't want to call someone a project, but there's a lot of development to be had with Herbert. And I think they like that 20th round pick.
Yeah, and I didn't hear that stuff about on the pitching, so that's really good to hear. Obviously, he's throwing 94, 95, and hasn't been pitching long, so that'll, like you mentioned, I mean, it is a project, but getting a guy just with talent, arm talent like that in the system is going to be big. So before we finish off go ahead, Kenny.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I didn't even notice this now, because when I was talking to some of these scouts, they just mentioned him as a pitcher. He's listed as a shortstop. I didn't even realize that. He started pitching near the halfway point, and they still announced him as an infielder.
Yeah. Yeah, and then someone had messaged me after and said, "Hey, they announced him as a short or as an infielder, but maybe he's actually going to be a pitcher or whatever." But yeah, another two-way player there. But I doubt he hits. It sounds like he's going to pitch. But before we go on to some undrafted free agents, there was a couple I just wanted to talk about. We mentioned the Astros taking Xavier Nance, and then they take Jake Mitchell, another high school guy. Well, they actually drafted two more high school guys, or three really. And the back half of the round, they got Elijah Fraley in the let's see, that was the 12th round out of Navarro High School in Texas, big left-handed hitting outfielder. And then they got Landon Arroyos, who was a shortstop out of Grayson High School in Georgia, and he was committed to Georgia State, but the Astros ended up pulling him away from that commitment, paid him $252,000. But really, it just brings me back to what we talked about earlier, where they went for some high school guys. And just kind of add in that high potential in the system. Joey McLaughlin, the 19th round pick, didn't end up signing, going to his commitment, I think was Arkansas State. But, getting Nance, getting Mitchell, getting Fraley, and now getting Arroyos into the system, they just added a lot more young talent.
You talked about it earlier, the last couple of years, trying to get more high schoolers and move them up the system a little bit faster. It's tough, when you didn't have a lot of those draft picks to really put an emphasis on maybe some younger talent, but this is kind of a cool wave to look at, over these next couple of years. And, it sucks for Naomar Ochoa Jr. It's just kind of injury after injury, a lot of things just completely out of his control. I mean, the story about the hook crashing into his windshield, that's, not something that could really set himself back, but back on the injured list again, was what I was told was, lower body strain. So, you want to see, some of these younger guys kind of move up and not really have, some of these injuries, even with Chase Jaworski. I know you're big on him and, what his, potential is on the infield and maybe even in the outfield, just how speedy he is, how good of a defender he is. He's had his own ailments that kind of popped up after a while. It just kind of hits a stride where he's not playing as much. So I think this will be a kind of a cool and unique way to kind of follow these next couple years, because it's just really kind of been all about some of these college players the last couple years. And at the same time, a lot of these guys will be building trade value for a team that's going to continue to try to trade and build and contend for World Series.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, you want to build all these guys to end up making the major league team and making the roster and being contributors. But yeah, at the end of the day, trade value is important, and we're gonna see what kind of trade value the system has right now over the next couple of days. But they did sign, I believe it was 7 or 8 undrafted free agents, but 2 of them were high schoolers. We saw them do that last year with a righty, Jagger Beck. This year, they drafted another right-handed pitcher, signed as an undrafted free agent, Ryan Petrovich, 17 years old, out of Michigan, 6'3". All I could find on him was athletic build, nice high spin rates on his curveball, and then his fastball was up to like 92 with life in the zone. So hard to find information on some of those guys. And they got a catcher out of California. I don't know if I don't want to pronounce his last name wrong, but it's August Caneo. Once again, 17-year-old. What I could find from Perfect Game was that he was quick actions, good arm, and that he had some easy pull side power. But just interesting to see them go two high schoolers in the undrafted free agents.
And kind of, building off that, I know you're probably not going to see some of these undrafted guys go in, Jimmy, but I know you're putting together your new updated ranking. I mean, from the draft, from the guys that they signed, who is probably maybe like 2 or 3 that you think are going to crack your list, or maybe be a little bit higher than some may think?
Yeah, I would definitely say you're talking just from the draft as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely Nayans, obviously, Ethan Fry for sure. Jace Mitchell is going to be in there. That's probably it for now. And then and you're doing that. I'm doing it based off of what I've read and stuff, so but hopefully get the guys in the system, and maybe we'll see some others make an impact. But I would say those 3 for now.
It is hard too, because you can't go and change it, I guess, by the end of the season, because a lot of these pitchers don't get many opportunities,
right,
or if any opportunities to pitch other than instructs, and that's not even recorded for public data. So you won't have many opportunities to probably assess some of these guys, and you'll have to wait until the spring. And I'm sure you'll have maybe an update, right during the summer, where you can get some of these guys in there, because some of these pitchers will definitely be moving.
Yeah, for sure. And one other undrafted guy I want to talk about, Mason Lytle from Pearland. Went to Oregon, ended up transferring to UTSA. Little older, college guy, 24 years old this year, but had a breakout, just awesome season for UTSA. Hit 366, more walks and strikeouts, 10 homers, 17 stolen bases, and kind of is like a real spark plug guy in the outfield. I don't know how much of the College World Series you watch, but I know they made a little run, and he had some big plays, some big catches, and just everything that I've heard from him, obviously from him being in the area where I'm from, it's just been great in terms of his work ethic and the kind of guy he is, getting him into the system. So I'm super excited about him. I'm hoping he'll make it to Fayetteville, with the first group, and we can see what he can do right away.
I remember the last couple of years when they would send all those position players together, even like the ones that were undrafted, and they would do all those photo shoots together, and you kind of see them. Like the Zach Coles is the one I always remember, and Robleski, who the Astros actually released recently. It seems so weird to look back. A lot of the 22 classes either moved on to, in trades, moved up, or moved out. And it's already just a new chapter in the minor league system. Moves so quickly.
For sure. So I'll look at a couple of the questions here. The first one I think I got was, am I invited by you? So obviously you were, so you're here. All right. Now, we'll move on. Potter is my favorite pick, I think, this year, but can he become a starter or more of an elite bullpen guy? I think we kind of touched on that, try to make him a starter until they fail as a starter, like you mentioned with Santa. And then we've seen that with Brian Abreu as well. I think we hit the Dome Sports questions. Let's see. This one says, is this draft a needle mover on the farm system rankings at all? It's hard to say, because every team has added a ton of prospects in that 18 to 20 range. The Astros didn't have a second round pick, and presumably who they would have taken in the second round would have been a top 30 guy. So in terms of moving the needle in the rankings, farm system rankings, I think it's tough. Did it improve maybe some of the talent, the upside in the system? I think definitely with the high schoolers they went at. I don't know if you have a different take on that, but.
Pretty much the same. It's just going to be the projectability is a little bit better just with a lot of the younger talent, but you're not going to see all those young guys come in right away. Of course, you're going to see your first round pick crack the top 10, but this is still looking at, some other ones like Baltimore, who had a lot of turnover just in its system recently, with a lot of trades, a lot of promotions, and didn't have a great year. And they still, they're going to get rewarded probably with better picks even next year. But at the same time, they had a bunch of, early picks. They got a lot of college reinforcements to that ranking. And so that kind of plays into what you're saying, Jimmy. Everyone got better. That's just kind of what happens. I think you'll still see the Astros in the bottom half of the 20s. And it just has to kind of continue to move forward with a lot of these high school picks and really betting on them and hitting on them their development.
Yeah, and the last question was, do you see any fast risers that can help the Astros next year? Like next year, that's so fast, for really any of them. So next year would be tough to say unless it's Potter and they decide to use him in relief only or something. But getting a guy next year, I think, is really tough. But I will say the Astros haven't really spent, at least and I could be wrong. I have to go back and check, but I'm doing this based on memory. Any of their like really second, third, kind of fourth round picks on bats. I feel like they've gone college pitchers with a lot of those picks. So to get Friday, get Monasterio, to get a little bit higher, quality college bats that they can throw in Fayetteville, hopefully at the end of the year, and Asheville next year is going to be really fun to see. You got Walker Yannick in Asheville right now, but like I said, without looking, I mean, it feels like every second, kind of third, maybe even fourth round pick have really been college pitchers over the last couple of years.
Excluding Jacob Melton, 2022 second rounder. So yeah, he ended up pretty much just being the top pick from that draft because they traded away Drew Gilbert for Verlander. So you kind of look at the breakdowns of a lot of those top picks, and you want to always kind of lean on maybe a college arm that's probably going to move pretty quickly up the ranking, especially one that you drafted early on. Like Bryce Mayer, like he's moving very quickly, but I wouldn't say we're going to expect him in the big leagues, this season. There's a lot of other pitchers, and there's a lot of pitchers coming back at the same time. So you just never know how it's going to work. I do want to, sit with Ethan Fry and just say that, he's the one that's going to move up quickly, as long as he's not going to have any shoulder, impingements or issues that kind of come back to him. And he looked good this past year, a summer removed from it. So that's a guy you kind of move or look at, but you just never know how much toll it'll have on him just in his first year, and it can be very tough just with maybe some outfielders that come from college ranks.
Definitely, but ultimately, it's a fun time, I think, for any minor league system, but especially here in the Astro system, and getting those additional prospects. I'm super excited for them to make their debut, hopefully here in the next few weeks. I think I looked last year. Walker Yannick maybe made his debut on like August 13th for the Woodpeckers. So I'm thinking hopefully the next couple of weeks we'll see those guys. But Kenny, that's all I got on the draft unless you got anything else.
No, I mean, it kind of snuck up on me this year. I don't know about you, Jimmy. It just really I was reading a lot of mocks, and then 2 weeks out, I'm like, oh, we still got 2 more weeks. I can still talk to some people, see what the ideas are. And then it just happened. And I was working those nights, and they were fun. I mean, I love the draft. It's very cool to see just random guys kind of pop up too. And I don't want to hurt their identities or anything, but you just never know. You just learn a lot about a lot of these guys all at once.
Definitely. Yeah, it was definitely a fun couple of days, a little different this year with the second day being rounds 4 through 20. So that was a lot that day, but yeah, it was good to get the draft going. Hopefully next year we don't lose our second round pick. Maybe we'll have a full slate of picks next year, but that's all I got. So appreciate everyone listening to this episode of the AstrosFuture podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, thank you for listening. We look forward to having you back for our next episode of the AstrosFuture podcast, covering your Astros and minor league system. All right.